I wonder, Mr. President, what you would say to him if he is considering using chemical or tactical nuclear weapons.
Don't.
And I wonder, what is your message to Hezbollah and its backer, Iran?
Don't.
Well, that didn't work out. Joining me now, my buddy Dave Reaboi. He, of course, does Late Republic Nonsense on Substack, which I enjoy all the time. Okay, Dave, first of all, let's deal with Iran. It's very common in this country to think of Iran like some backwater dump with a bunch of mud huts and whatnot. And while I'm not the biggest Iran fan in the world, that's not necessarily the case. They sure did have a lot of missiles and drones, Dave.
Well, they did. Iran is not a third world country; it's a second world country. No thanks to the mullahs. And Biden really, when he said no, don't. I think that was obviously BS, because we've got reports that the Iranians cleared their actions, their acts of war against Israel with Biden. He gave them the thumbs up. He said, act within a particular constraint. So Biden and the administration greenlit essentially 300 launches of ballistic missiles, of cruise missiles, of drones at the Israeli population centers. And talk about an irresponsible thing to do, a ridiculous, unprecedented thing to do. Just do it sort of within these limits. We'll shoot down most of them. If we can't get them all, we can't get them all. Some Israelis will die, but go ahead, Iran, do your thing. It's ridiculous, and it's just another example of how this administration has been really the successor to the Obama administration when it comes to prioritizing Iran, and when it comes to ditching our allies in favor of Iran.
Dave, can you help me understand something, at least as you understand it, between Obama and Biden? And this is just the way I saw it, and maybe I was wrong. I saw Obama, especially given his background, the Frank Marshall Davises of the world and whatnot, as just being someone who just hates Jews. That's how I took it. He's from that community, that black liberation theology community. He just doesn't like Jews, and I saw that would probably be the axe to grind he had with Israel. Joe Biden, he just seems more than anything else like he wants everything to shut up and go away because it's causing him problems domestically. He doesn't come off to me as some guy who hates Jews like Obama did. He comes off to me as a guy who doesn't like his poll numbers in Michigan.
Well, I think that's true to a great extent. With Obama, it was definitely some personal animus, but I think that analysis isn't entirely right, because sure, there's some personal animus when it comes to Barack Obama, the man, but he had an administration that was all pulling in the same direction, and they didn't necessarily share that type of animus. What they did have was an ideological animus against Israel. And they view Israel as white. They view Israel's enemies as brown, or not white at the very least. And that's the far left frame through which they view international affairs, the same way that they view domestic affairs, through that prism. So it's not surprising. In the Obama administration, as we both know, Joe Biden is basically out of it when it comes to the day-to-day and frankly, even the hour-to-hour and minute-to-minute, knowing where he is at times. So this administration is jam-packed with folks who love Iran, who hate Israel. And that's just what we're seeing. We have all kinds of reports of, their point man for Iran, the Biden administration point man for Iran, Robert Malley, mysteriously left because there was some kind of a that when they did a background check and they didn't like what they found, but they didn't want to announce it and tell everyone that this guy Robert Malley, who's got long-standing relationships with the Iranians, long-standing relationships with Hamas and Hezbollah, et cetera, he just kind of disappeared. Even though his people are still in the administration. So, and we know several folks who work either in the White House or in the State Department or in other capacities for Biden that are kind of hardcore pro-Iran, hardcore anti-Israel. So this is what we're seeing, and yes, it does have to do with winning in Michigan on one hand, but on the other hand, this is what these guys actually believe.
Dave, let's talk about Iran for a moment. Now, that was a whole lot of rockets and drones and missiles and other things which you just laid out for virtually no loss of life. And I know we're still sorting through the rubble as it is, an injury here, maybe a death there, but very small amount. And I can't help but wonder, did Iran actually want to hurt Israel at all? I mean, talk about a weak attempt at something. Is this just them trying to save face in front of somebody?
Well, I think there was definitely a face-saving aspect to this. On one hand, on the other hand, look. I mean, it could have been a disaster. These missiles could have gotten through. I mean, even if 10% of the missiles could have gotten through, that's a lot of loss of life. And you have to remember, you have to put these missiles into the same context as the Palestinian missiles and the Hezbollah missiles that rain down on Israel all the time. I mean, just because the death toll isn't huge, it doesn't make these less of a war crime, because these are, by definition, targeting civilians. I mean, there's no military use for this at all. A lot of apologists for the Iranian regime like to say, Israel bombed a site in Damascus next to the consulate, which they lie, and they say that it was an embassy. It wasn't an embassy, but it was an annex to the consulate where IRGC terrorists, military commanders that are legitimate military targets, were meeting in order to plan more attacks on Israel through Iran's terror proxies. And Israel whacked them. And then to respond, quote unquote, respond to this action by blanketing an entire country and putting the 7 million people in Israel under fear for their lives, that they're coming with 300 drones and cruise missiles and ballistic missiles, etc. I mean, it's no small thing, and it's definitionally a war crime. The purposeful targeting of civilians.
Dave, I understand the how nice it would be if you're a nation like Israel and have somebody park a carrier group right off your shore to protect you. But if you're Israel and you have to now go through this every time there's a Democrat elected, I mean, we got Joe Biden out there today reportedly telling them not to respond. If you're Israel, why bother continue this ally thing? Why bother with it? Who does it help? We're holding them back in significant ways. I understand we also help in significant ways. Not to be a hothead, but why bother continuing this? Why not just call America and say, hey, we're done with this. We're divorced.
Look, I mean, I think you make a great point. The U.S.-Israel relationship is complicated for a number of reasons, but I have long been a proponent of allowing Israel to make its own weapons, which is something that inside the Beltway and in the Pentagon is a big no-no. And everybody seems to think that we're just handing Israel bucket loads of money. But that money comes with significant strings attached, and that those strings are, you need to buy these weapons that you're buying from American manufacturers, which of course makes Lockheed and the military-industrial complex in this country very, very happy. On the other hand, too, policymakers in Congress and in the executive branch look around and they say, well, we would rather have, the Israelis are buying a lot of gear, so if they're buying a lot of gear, they may as well buy from the United States, because if they're buying from China, then then that's not good for us strategically. So that's the situation that they're in. I've long advocated for them to be able to manufacture these weapons in Israel, but before we get to that, we're going to have this fight in the executive branch in the United States. Hopefully, we're going to win an election. Hopefully, Donald Trump is elected in November, and then we can start the mechanics of changing this. But look, don't you think that the Israelis would love to be able to make their own Iron Dome missiles? No. And to not have to come back every once in a while to the United States and say, "Hey, we need more stuff because we live in a dangerous neighborhood and we're in an active war zone, fighting against Iran's other, several proxies, from the Houthis to Shia militias in Syria." And Hezbollah in Lebanon, and of course Hamas in Gaza. Not to mention what's going on, the disaster that's going on in the West Bank with the Palestinian Authority. So they have a need for a tremendous amount of ammunition, or else they're going to die. And it's in their best interest, and frankly our best interest, for them to be building this stuff and building their weapons weapons manufacturing base in Israel, which is something that they would love to do. We just have to allow them to do it.